And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Welcome to the Dice Tower!
Welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vasel. This is my daughter Melody. And today we're talking about a game in which it has a gimmick, I suppose, but the gimmick really works well. In fact, I think this is the best children's game of 2008. And this is the Suitcase Detective by Haba. And if you look at the box here, it actually doesn't open like a typical box. Instead, there's a ribbon on the side, which lets you open up and drop out all the components on one side. And then there's another ribbon on the other side, which lets you pull out a drawer. And we'll talk more about that drawer in just a moment. The game comes with a tuck box, and in this tuck box is a set of cards for each player. And you can have up to 4 players. And so players will be taking a set of cards in their colors. And before you give out those cards, you're going to determine what objects you're going to be using in the game. There's a card that matches each object. Like here's a picture frame, here's a necklace, here's a t-shirt. You don't use all the objects in the game unless you're really up for some kind of sadistic, really difficult game. And then you're going to be taking the objects that you're going to be using in the game. There's silhouettes of these objects made of plastic that are included with the game. And so you determine which one of these you're going to be using. Then it's one player's turn. They will take all the objects that are being used in the game. Let's say these are the objects that are being used in the game. And then everyone else has to close their eyes or hide their eyes. And then they'll take 2 of these objects and stick them in this blue sack. The rest of the objects they are going to take and they're going to put in this drawer here. And then close this drawer. Then once they've closed the drawer, they shake the box around a little bit. And everyone else can open their eyes. And at that point, they're going to open the box. Now, inside the box, once you take the board out, inside the box you can see that there is a bit of a clear blue background where you can see the silhouettes of the shapes inside. And all the other players are going to be looking at these silhouettes while the timer's running and trying to figure out which 2 of the objects the other person took out. They will be using their cards to denote which ones they think they've taken out. Once everyone's picked their cards, the cards are revealed, and then the person will reveal and say, "Ta-da, I took out the teddy bear and the clock." And then anyone who got those right will move a few spaces on this board. The first person to the end wins. Player changing takes place. Each time a different player is the player who hides them. And again, like I said, you can ramp up the difficulty by adding in more shapes. You might think it's very simple to find that, but the shapes tend to sit on top of each other, and some shapes seem to be a lot more difficult to find than others. It's more difficult to notice when the vase is gone, I think, than when, for example, the clock is gone, because I think the clock has a much more distinctive shape. The box itself is used very much in the course of the game, and you use the ribbon on the one side to open it up. All your components go inside this box, and also it's where you see the silhouettes of the different objects that are being hidden. Then there's a drawer which is pulled out by a ribbon. Now you have to be kind of careful when pulling this drawer out. I've already ripped my ribbon out once, and the drawer is not the easiest thing to slide out back and forth. In fact, when I first got the game, I wasn't even sure how to open the thing. But once you figure it out, it's really easy to play, and kids are going to have a lot of fun because deciding which of the 2 shapes to pull out isn't that hard of or that big of a deal. But taking these shapes and putting them in the bag is a lot of fun, and then everyone else is looking at it, trying to figure out which shapes are gone. And I'm telling you, it's a whole lot easier than it sounds. You look at the box, you look at the silhouettes, and you're trying to think, oh, I think these are the 2 that are missing. And if you find that the game really becomes too easy, then simply stick all the shapes in. And I'll tell you, it's a lot more difficult. You can shake the box up a little bit so that when you open it, the shapes aren't all one little clump together. Maybe you can, spread them out a little bit so you can see them more easily. But overall, the idea of using the box is a very clever one. It has kind of a memory element, but it's more of a noticing what's gone. It's more of a game about observation. And the timer keeps people from taking too long. It doesn't really make the game too fast. You're sitting there, oh, gotta get it done now. But instead, it's just something that keeps the game flowing. The scoreboard itself is just a pile of suitcases, and I guess that's added there for effect. But I like the game a lot. It's one that I'm not really that good at, but I have seen that even amongst kids, it tends to even out, and you'll see that the games are fairly close. What do you think?
I think it's really fun because you know how these cards, like, when I played with other kids, I went like under the table so I'll tell other people like not to peek and stuff to just go under the table.
And you'll have that. You have to make sure the kids aren't looking while the other kids take two out. But when I played this recently, I played it at a board game event where for elementary, and I had Melody teach the game at the table, and she played with a bunch of other a bunch of other third and second graders, and they all understood the game really easily, and they were able to play it without any supervision on my part, and I was glad for that. So the game, I like I said, it's unique and it's interesting, and I think it's one of the best kid games of 2008.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.